Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Miller. We're here at the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio, and we're sitting here today with Rubina Azizdin, career counselor from Career Services. Rubina, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always more than welcome. You're one of my favorite guests.
Thank you.
One of the things, obviously, that we want to chat about today, and the main topic of discussion today, is going to be the Fall Job Fair coming up on November 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and that's going to be in the Conference Center here at Central Penn College. Rubina, I want to talk a lot about not only just the job fair itself, but what students can do to prepare themselves for a job fair. Let's just say this is the first time that they've ever done something like this. So where would you like to start? Do you want to start off with the event itself, or do you want to start off with some tips for success for students?
I would say how to prepare for it first. I mean, it's nice to be prepared so that you know what to expect, and then we can talk about what will happen the day of the event.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things that I always talk about with my students, and maybe we can start here, is for example, I'm having my CPC Foundations class go. They've literally been going to be on campus for a couple weeks. And I think a lot of students, I'm always asking my freshman and my sophomore students to go to events like this. And they always ask me, but Professor Miller, I'm not necessarily ready to look for a job. I still have another year, 2 years to finish up with school. What benefits will I get from going to such an event like this? Right. What's your comment?
Well, one of the biggest benefits is that you get to meet actual people working in their field, their major, or in their fields of their, whatever they're trying to pursue. So their field of study, that's what I'm looking for. So they will be able to meet and greet, talk to people, one-on-one, be able to ask questions. They'll be able to see any open positions, either for part-time work or internship opportunities and even full-time opportunities. So they will be able to network. I think networking is the biggest and most important thing that somebody can do for their career, because they get a first-hand exposure to, what's coming up, and also they're able to gain information on, any specific areas that they might be interested in their field of study. Interestingly enough,
you said a few things there that I want to maybe elaborate upon a little bit. The first thing was part-time jobs. Now, you speaking to somebody, trust me, I worked in the restaurant business for a long time when I was working my way through school. So I understand the need for part-time jobs. But I think sometimes a lot of students don't think about going to a job fair to get a part-time job. I mean, to me, not only is it a good way to network, it's a good way to show these organizations that you are capable of doing this job full-time, but it also is going to add experience within your field to your resume. Would you say that some of these or many of these people that are coming for our job fair offer part-time jobs?
Oh, absolutely. On our form that the employers fill out, our registration form, they will indicate, what types of positions that they're looking for, and almost all of them usually have part-time on there.
And that's something, again, some of our students might work retail or work grocery store or work at a restaurant. I just cannot tell you how important it is to work in the field in any way you can, even if that's just volunteering, even if that is on a part-time basis, or even job shadowing or things like that. Having that experience while you're in school is so important. Obviously, I know that you know our friend Kara Canali, who was in not too long ago, and she was talking about some specific opportunities with students, not only just with networking in that respect, but also a lot more people are doing job shadowing now.
Yes.
Can you talk about even what some of the advantages are to something such as job shadowing in 2017?
Job shadowing. I think that they actually get to go and see these different workplaces. Sometimes when you're in a college environment, you're just so used to that type of environment. So when you walk into an actual workplace, you're able to kind of get that feeling. You get a taste of what will be coming up. You get to see professionals working, and you'll have to probably dress like the profession, so that'll be a change. And then you get to experience that, that those work hours from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4:30 that you typically might not have as a college student. So you actually get to experience and you get to talk to different people about their experiences. So you're getting the real life experience just shadowing, even if you're not working, just watching what's going on and taking in everything that's going on in your environment.
So let's talk about some of the other aspects of the job fair. Let's say a student is going to the job fair. Let's have a little checklist for them. What are some of the things that they absolutely should do before they walk into the job fair?
Well, number one, research who's going to be there. I mean, you don't want to walk into a room and not know who is who and, where are they from, and not get overwhelmed last minute. So mentally be prepared. Usually what we do is right before the job fair happens, we will email a list out of all the employers with their tables out to our students and faculty. If they don't get that, then they can always stop by the Career Services office and get that list. And if they have questions about different employers and what kind of jobs they have to offer, they can either talk to me, Steve, or Kristen, and we'll be able to help them with that. The next thing to do would be to print out resumes. I think it's very important to have those resumes on hand, especially if you're going, specifically to job hunt and to speak to employers. You can go in there and introduce yourself, and then to make even more of a stronger impression, hand out a resume so that that employer has that information to look at, and to also, if they wanted to contact you, they would have that information. So have a resume. Also, then have some professional attire. Walking into a job fair, yes, it may be networking, but yes, it also may be for job or internship opportunities. So you always want to look your best. You want to present your best. And so have something decent to wear. We usually say have an outfit that you would wear to an interview. So, you don't need a tuxedo, but, something nice and something that makes you nice and presentable, makes you look professional.
And Career Services can help the students out with the professional attire.
Absolutely, yes. We have a collection of professional clothing that are absolutely 100% for free. So all they have to do is just stop in and check out and see if anything would work out for them, and we'd be able to help them with that.
And one of the things that I'm going to do here one of these days coming up prior to the job fair is I'm going to chat with my students, and anybody who does not have any professional attire, I'm going to have stop by Career Services, because that's going to be one of the important elements of this. I'm giving them sort of an assignment, kind of like a mini scavenger hunt, but then they also have to show up in professional attire as well. So
great idea.
And you did have an interesting point earlier about knowing who's there, because especially if you are looking for a job or potential internship, some places, I don't want to say cater to, but some places are looking for specific majors when they come in. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of students think, especially if this is their first job fair, that they have to go and they kind of talk to everyone. But that's not how we usually suggest that students approach a job fair. In fact, what we typically suggest is that they research out a handful of different organizations that they want to target. How would students go about doing something like that?
Targeting?
Like how do you think that students would go about looking at certain organizations that they want to potentially work for in the future?
Well, the first thing that I would do is look up the name, and then maybe even visit a webpage if they had to, or check out their social media and just do a little bit of a research on them, background history on them. Also come in and talk to us. We might know some of the recruiters, or we might know some of the professionals personally. So come in and talk to us, and we can give them some information as well. And also, if they know anybody that works for the company, maybe we could, if there's some graduates working for them, or if we know somebody personally that has been working for them or did work for them in the past, we can also pass down that information as well.
So we're here today with Rubina Azizdin, the career counselor for our Career Services Department here at Central Penn College, and we're talking about the upcoming job fair that takes place on November 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, Rubina, you did mention that there is no registration required for this. this. And I will be down there helping any of the students that need any help, and certainly I appreciate the opportunity to come down and help you guys out in any way I can for your biggest event of the term. So one of the things I also wanted to talk about here with you is who are some of the players in the game. Now, you mentioned earlier, we talked about some of the important reasons why students might go to a job fair, even if they're not necessarily looking for a job. Well, that's because you might want to learn more about the people in the community that maybe a couple years from now are going to be the ones that are hiring. So can you talk about some of the people that you've already have lined up?
Sure. So right now I have around 16 employers registered. And so just an example of who is going to be there, we have the PA State Police, Hershey Entertainment and Resorts. We have a couple of financial institutions that are coming. We also have Hollywood Casino and Lancaster General Hospital coming.
And that's just a small list. And as you mentioned, a lot of times closer to the event registration date, which is at the end of October, you do get more of an influx of other businesses coming in. So,
right.
But even just some of those that you talked about right there, between Hershey and the PA State Police, I mean, you're talking about some major players in the industries that they serve. Mm-hmm. Now, another interesting thing, and I love how you do this when you put the lists out, you will put out what specific majors they are looking for. So, for example, the PA State Police might not just necessarily need criminal justice students. Maybe they need communication students. Maybe they need business students. It just depends on where their openings are at that time. So don't just think, oh, well, I'm not criminal justice. Maybe, being a state trooper is not necessarily what I have in mind. Well, there's all kinds of different positions potentially available through that and through some of the other organizations that you might not think of off the top.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I also want to talk about with you here is the ability for the students to get some of this professional clothing. One of the things, and we had Steve in here before, and I know that just in the past on October the 13th, you had a clothing drive. I just think it's such a unique opportunity for our students, especially maybe new students who are on campus that have never had this opportunity to have a chance to come down and get free clothing for this type of situation. How did that all get started, and how has this become sort of an initiative for Career Services?
Basically what had happened was we had a couple people drop in and just drop off some donations. And then I believe somebody had contacted Steve from a local church that they had a whole bunch of donations and some extra clothing and wanted to see if we could make use of them. So Steve and I believe Dr. Eli Fenor, went and picked up the clothing from the church, and we just put them up on the racks in our career center. And then ever since then, we've just had people coming and dropping things off. We have people that would come in for tours with admissions, or just, other professors and faculty and staff with the college would see that we have that, those racks of clothes. So they would just come in and donate things. And
it's not like, and I know Steve made a comment to this point, it's not like they're all, old, used clothing. I mean, Steve said much of the stuff has never even been worn.
Yeah.
Like brand new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's really impressive how, this is not something that, a career services office is typically doing. And I really commend you guys. I'm sure that it does maybe take up a little room in the office, but I'm sure also that the students that you are helping are genuinely appreciative. And I really think it's a really cool thing that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have ties, we have shoes, so we have accessories. If students can basically walk out of there with an entire outfit. So
I'm going to definitely send some people down for to prepare for our fall job fair that's taking place on November 1st.
We would appreciate that.
Well, just a couple more questions before we finish up here today, Rubina. One thing that I wanted to talk about here, and certainly we will refer back to this on our nightly news page, you were recently won the one of the Luminary Awards. You won the Shining Star Award, who recognizes a woman in a non-executive role who shows, quote, excellence in their work environment and community. And that's according to the Chamber of Commerce category description. You So obviously, we are huge advocates of you, what you do. You do such a wonderful job for our students. How does this award stack up? I mean, I know that you're very modest, and when I brought this up, you kind of, you didn't really want to talk about it much, but this is something that's very special. I mean, can you give us a little bit of backstory on this award and how you won it and how it makes you feel?
Well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging it. It is a very big honor to be able to have that award. I'm very heavy. A lot of people don't know this at our college campus, but I'm very heavily involved in the community with a lot of different organizations. I serve in a lot of different board of directors, those types of things. So this award came out. It was through the West Shore Chamber of Commerce. And basically, it recognized the work that I did in the community or do in the community. Also, it recognizes things that you're doing personally. So I'm working on my doctorate. And one of the biggest things that I think that was a playing factor in this was my involvement in the Women's Leadership Conference here at Central Penn. So the Chamber of Commerce recognizes women in different ways and, what they're doing for our local women in the community and things like that. So being able to host the Women's Leadership Conference here at the college, that was a huge privilege for me. And it was also a great benefit to the community. So people appreciated that. So it was a great benefit to our students, students from other schools, and also community members. So as you know, we always welcome our community members to all of our events because we need that support. We need that support, for our students to be able to network, to expose our college, also for any, potential job and internship opportunities. So, people appreciated it, and boom, I was nominated for the award, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
Not only were you nominated, though, you won.
I did.
So what was that like? I mean, this is you're talking about the prestige of this award.
Yeah.
But it's an old cliche, but yes, just to be nominated is an honor, but to win. I mean, did you have a speech? Did you get to do the whole thing?
They told us to prepare a speech. I believe there was, in my category, there were 6 candidates. They told us to prepare a speech ahead of time, about a 5-minute speech, and then we were actually able to meet all the candidates. So I actually didn't really think about it, about winning or anything. I was just excited to be able to be a part of the event. So we got to meet the candidates, and when I actually met the candidates, that's when I kind of started feeling like, I don't know, which way this is going to go, because there are such great women, so many different things that they're doing in the community, their, career paths and their career histories. It was just fascinating to meet everybody. So, after that networking reception with all the candidates, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and dream big, but, I'll go and enjoy the event. And I invited my family to come just because I wanted them to be there and enjoy the event with me, and also to calm my nerves. So the day of the event, they called each nominee up, recognized them. It was great. And then they went to announce the winner. There was 2 categories. Mine was the Rising Star, and then there was a Visionary category. So when they announced my name, I completely was shocked. I was not expecting it, to be honest. There was just so many phenomenal women, and with that type of competition, you just never know. So like I said, I didn't have any high hopes. I just went there to enjoy the day, enjoy the event. So yeah, they called my name. I was completely shocked, but I was deeply, deeply honored to receive something at that level. I've never received anything at that level, to be honest, before. So this was something that was groundbreaking for my career and for just me personally. Yeah.
That's tremendous. And certainly please accept congratulations from the Nightly News for winning that award. And along with this podcast, Sherry Long, the president of the club, did a very nice article about this specifically, so I will link back to that as well. Well, Rubina, as always, thank you so much for joining the Nightly News Podcast today. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that your event, the fall job fair that's taking place on November 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. is a success.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, I will be there. I really and truly hope that you put me to work because I'm going to have my classes there. I'm going to have an interesting assignment for them to do. And obviously, if any of them need clothing, we'll put you in touch as well. So we really appreciate your efforts. I know that it's on you for a lot of these events and the success of these events. And I'll tell you, every single time I go to one, it seems like they're more well attended each and every time, and that the students really are understanding. Hey, these job fairs, these internship fairs, they are not just for people who are out there looking. They are for everybody on this campus. And I just appreciate all the efforts that you put in on doing these events.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And thank you so much for your support. You're one of the faculty members that really support our events and everything that we do. So we appreciate you as well.
Well, I look back and I know for a fact that one of the things that sort of stopped me from maybe advancing in my career sooner than I did, and I finally got the hint before it was too late, but is I didn't take advantage of career services. But I obviously put some of the blame on myself, but I also believe that colleges really across the board don't really promote their career services departments properly. And honestly, when I was in school, I knew there was career services, but I never really understood what they did. I never had any of the career services, employees, staff come to my classes or anything like that. And I always just say that I want to make sure that, if nothing else, my students know where you are, what you do, that you're around, that you're here to help them. And that really it's just a part of what you're getting when you come to Central Penn College. And you guys have always been very supportive, very eager to help me and come into my classes, come to the podcast. And I just think it's a wonderful experience and opportunity for our students. And that's why I always make them, I make it a part of class to come down to these events. So
thank you. Well, we appreciate your advocacy. We really do.
Certainly not a problem. Rubina, it's always a pleasure, and we will make sure to have you back for your next event, hopefully in the winter term, because you're always one of my favorite podcast guests.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So for Rubina Azizdin, career counselor from the Career Services Department, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
Hey, this is Sai Pinthong. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. We're sitting here today with Megan Peterson, Title IX officer and ADA coordinator here at Central Penn College. Megan, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. This is your first time here on the podcast. We're so happy to have you. We've got a few repeat guests. Adrian's on every month. We have Sarah on once a term to talk alumni events, but I'm hoping that maybe we can start having you on a little bit more frequently as well. You're a wonderful member of our Central Penn family, and obviously what you do in the Title IX office, it's amazing what you've done in just a very short period of time. How long have you been in this position?
Officially, I've been in this position since January.
So you've only been in the position for 9 short months, and already you've made some major initiatives going on in for the college. So it's wonderful to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
One of the things that I endure a lot, and I teach CPC foundations. I teach it almost every single term, sometimes multiple sections. I've actually probably taught that class here more than almost any other class that I've taught. One of the things that I notice coming in is that some of the students are maybe just unaware of all of the resources that we have here on campus. In fact, that's part of my job for the first couple of weeks of classes, literally trying to get them to know everyone in all of these different departments, whether it's Megan Klein coming in, Steve Hassinger coming in, even Dr. Fedrizi's going to be in next term. I try to get as many people from our campus in there so they can get in front of the students. Because I understand, and I'm sure you do too, when we went to college orientation, it's just like a whirlwind. It's a few hours and you're just constantly being bombarded with more and more information, and it's sometimes doesn't sink in for the students. So one of the things that I've noticed personally in the last, I'm coming up on 5 years of being here. I can't even believe it. In the last 5 years is that so many of our students don't take advantage of accommodations. And I know that I always give a fairly lengthy discussion about accommodations on the first day of class. Before we get any further, can you just discuss what accommodations are and maybe what students might be eligible for those accommodations?
Sure. So accommodations are ways that students can get help either in the classroom or out of the classroom based on a disability that they might have. And disabilities can run the range of anything from physical to mental to a learning disability. There's all sorts of different types of accommodations that students could qualify for, including extra time on tests, being able to take tests in a quiet area. Those are two of the most common accommodation requests that we see. But there's a whole gamut of accommodations that students could be eligible for.
So let me ask, so if a student has accommodations or might need accommodations, what would they have to do to make that next step? Can you walk us through the process of getting accommodations?
Sure. So students get accommodations through my office, which is the compliance office up in ATEC 305. We also work with students that are online. We can do this entire process online if needed. So we have a disability services application packet that students fill out. It's just a couple forms. It's not a very long packet. And they submit that along with documentation of their disability. So that could be from a medical provider. It might be from a school psychologist that they had. If a student had an IEP in high school, a lot of the times the information that we need is contained in that report. So students submit their documentation with the packet. We review it and put together an approved accommodations letter.
And you said that some of the things could be either taking the test in a quiet place, getting extended time on tests. What might be some other accommodations that students might be able to get?
So students might qualify for accommodations such as being able to audio record lectures. Maybe they need help taking notes. There's all sorts of different academic accommodations that students could become eligible for depending on the nature of their disability.
One of the things that I've personally noticed, and again, I think, and we had this chat off air, I think from the faculty perspective, obviously, we are not allowed to self-diagnose, right? We are not allowed to go to a student and say, and I'm putting this very simply here. I don't think anyone would say it quite in this fashion, but, hey, I think you need accommodations. Obviously, we are not able to do that. And I found as a faculty member, now, maybe I'm in a little bit different of a spot because I obviously have a son who's special needs, so I understand a little bit more about accommodations and how they go, at least at the high school level where he is right now. But it's tough to navigate this. And I think it's also tough from a faculty perspective, but it's also tough from a student perspective. You'd said something off air that it really is kind of upsetting to me is that, a lot of our students, even though they know that they might need accommodations, don't choose to pursue them. Can you explain why that might be?
Sure. Some students are reluctant to pursue getting accommodations because they want to prove that they can do college-level work without accommodations. That's certainly fine if a student wants to not use accommodations, but any student that thinks they might be eligible for accommodation should at least get that accommodation letter in place. From there, a student can decide which classes they want to use that accommodation in, which faculty they want to disclose that to. So a student could go through their entire college career never using their accommodation letter, but at least they have it in place in case they run into a class where they do really need that extra help.
It's upsetting to me that maybe some of our faculty are and I don't know this for sure, but I hope that some of our faculty are maybe taking a little bit more of a time on the first day or the first couple of days of class to really go over this. I mean, I know it's something that's in most of our syllabi. I know it's something that I personally talk about in great detail on day one. And in fact, we just chatted. I'm going to start having you come into my CPC Foundations class. But I really think that for many of the faculty on campus, it's just something that we unfortunately kind of tiptoe around because we don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to upset the student. And we certainly don't want to do anything that we're not allowed to do. And I'm so glad that your office has taken the initiative to start putting together some of these programs, start doing some outreach, like coming on the podcast or coming into classes. This is something that I think is going to make it much, much easier for students. And I've actually even had students come to me and said that they didn't even know that accommodations were even eligible for them. So let's say you'd mentioned earlier, okay, so we have, if somebody had an IEP in high school or something like that, what about somebody who has not been diagnosed with anything and never has had accommodations, but maybe just feels like they're having some problems? What sort of recourse do you advise for a student in that situation?
So if there's a student who thinks that they might need accommodations or might need extra assistance, but have never been diagnosed with any sort of a disability, there's a couple different things that we can do to work with that student. One is I can connect them with local testing resources so that they can get tested to find out if they do have a learning disability that might qualify them for accommodations. We can also get them connected with the Learning Center. A lot of times tutoring services can really help students to kind of get through some of those academic roadblocks that they might be facing. But either way, if a student thinks that they might need accommodations or need that extra help, they can come to my office and we'll connect them with those resources.
So you're basically where everybody can go if they feel either that they already know that they have potentially a learning disability or may think that they might have a learning disability. Now, we had also talked right before the show about the whole concept of accommodations. Can you just walk through the process from when the student gets accommodations to, and then how they communicate that to the professor, just for those who might not be aware?
Sure. So once a student has submitted their documentation and their application packet and we have that approved accommodation letter in place, that letter stays on file in my office. Each term, the student can decide which of their classes, if any or all, they're going to use that letter in, and they can come to my office and get copies of that letter. They then give a copy of that letter to the faculty member. That faculty member can review the approved accommodations that student has. Faculty member signs off on the letter. That original gets kept on file in my office, and a copy gets scanned to the faculty member so that they have it for reference. And the student always has a copy of their accommodation letter for their own reference.
Well, you made a comment, too, earlier when we were chatting about how a lot of students may not take advantage of this because they're afraid of what the faculty member might think about them. You make a very good point right there. Once they have the accommodations, it's up to them. It's student-driven, as you mentioned, which faculty members they disclose that information to. So I think that that's a very important point about this whole process. Is it's not like that the students, it's not like an email gets sent out to all the faculty members saying, hey, it's a much more discreet, process. And very simply, like, from my perspective, often what I do is I have students come up at the end of the first class, end of the second class with the form. They'll hand it to me. They'll say, I have accommodations, and I'll say, I will do anything I possibly can to help you in any way I can. Whether it's these things here or whether there's even other things that maybe I can help you with, I'm always happy to do that. So why do you think, let's talk a little bit more about this. You had just mentioned that coming into the fall, for the first time, we've had a lot more students that are actually done with their paperwork at this point. I think that that's fantastic. Why do you think that things are changing here a little bit?
I think a lot of it has to do with educational initiatives that we're putting out. We're trying to make sure that our faculty and staff are trained about ADA and 504 and those accommodations procedures. So our admissions team has been great about directing students to my office during the admissions process so we can start their paperwork. And we've also been doing trainings with faculty to help faculty kind of create that welcoming environment in their classrooms where students feel comfortable using accommodations. It is a very student-driven process. Accommodations are confidential. So unlike high school, this is one of the key differences between high school and college, is unlike high school, where all faculty would get clued in if a student was on a special education plan of some sort. At the college level, it is completely student-driven, that students can decide who they are disclosing their disability to.
And I think the thing is here, too, is not only in addition to caring faculty, you'd also mentioned the Learning Center. There are so many resources here on campus for students that may fall outside of the accommodations that people can take advantage of no matter what. Now, one of the things that I know that you'd wanted to talk about a little earlier is the process that students go through each term when they're sharing with their professors. You'd mentioned that they don't have to share them with all of their professors, but at the same time, they should still have the paperwork done. It should still be on file, and they should choose which professors they want to self-disclose. I know you had said you'd had some other things that you wanted to chat about. This would probably be a good time. What were some other things, some other important facts that we can talk about here that maybe if there's a student out there saying, I'm not really sure if I want to go through with this, maybe give them some other information about maybe how they can go about doing this or some other tips on how to get this process started.
Sure. I think one of the most important tips is to start the process early. Even if you're not sure if you want to use accommodations or think you're going to need accommodations at the college level, to start the process early. That way we can make sure that we have all the background paperwork in order that we need. Sometimes it might take a little while to get paperwork, maybe from a high school, to get it sent over. So the earlier you start that process, the sooner we can get everything in place so that when you do decide that you want to use an accommodation letter, we're all set to go. Another important kind of point to know is that one big difference between K-12 and college is at the high school level, IEPs are kind of identified by the school, they're created by the school, it's very administrative driven. At the college level, it's really up to the student to self-advocate and self-disclose. So we will never kind of go to a student and say, hey, we think that you need an accommodation. We think that you might have a learning disability. It's up to the student to advocate for themselves and to start that process. So that's a really key difference between high school and college, is that the student needs to be proactive to seek those accommodations.
I'm not sure if you want to go into a little bit more detail. Maybe if there's students out there that are struggling and maybe have never been diagnosed, what are maybe some signs that they might want to maybe go get diagnosed or go to the doctor? Like if a student's sitting out there and thinking to themselves, I've had a couple of these things happen, maybe because I know personally, and I've talked to some students about this, a lot of students who may have had a slight learning disability didn't even ever think that they might have. Do you have a couple of things that maybe students might look for to see if they would qualify for accommodations?
I would say that if a student is noticing that they're having very similar problems across multiple classes, that they're running into the same kind of roadblocks or same issue across multiple disciplines, then that might be a warning sign that maybe they need to look into this and see if it's something that they need to get some extra help on. That's usually a good warning sign. And
would they go to a family doctor? Would they have to go to a specialist?
Family doctors typically cannot diagnose learning disabilities. If it's a physical disability or something of that nature, a family doctor would be the perfect person to go to. But for learning disabilities, we're looking for more of a school psychologist, a licensed psychologist, somebody who's trained to diagnose learning disorders.
And do you have people here locally, if students are from not in this area, that they could go to be diagnosed?
There are some local testing resources depending on what the student's looking for, and I could certainly help get a student connected to those resources.
I'll tell you what, Megan, you are clearly an all-star here. You're doing everything to help our students really make it to the next level. And you know what? Everybody needs help in some way or the other, and I just appreciate the fact that you're going to these lengths to try to help our students be successful here. And if you're a student out there and you're embarrassed or you're otherwise have anxiety about facing this situation or even facing your professor, I mean, just from a professor's point of view, I am always so happy to talk to students who are willing to do this, to come up, because I know I know it's difficult. I know it takes, there's pressure when you go up on your first day of class. You don't want a professor to think any less of you. I'm just hoping that you believe that we all want what's best for you, and we are happy when you come up and talk to us about those things. Megan, anything else that you want to chat about accommodations today?
What I would just say, to go off of your point, is that if a student is nervous or isn't sure how to approach a conversation with a faculty member, that's another way that I can be a resource to students, is that if a student maybe is nervous to go to a particular faculty member or isn't sure how that conversation is going to go, that I'm happy to help them facilitate that conversation, to either go with them or to set up a meeting in my office with the faculty member so that they don't...
Your nice new office.
Nice new office, yes.
But it's and I appreciate that's another wonderful thing that you do, and that's something that can be done very simply. So, like I said, we're here with Megan Peterson today. She's the Title IX officer and ADA coordinator here at Central Penn College. One last thing I want to chat with you about, because obviously this is going to go up during the fall term. You're obviously, and congratulations, you are expecting, and your due date is coming up here first or second week of October. So if students are in this situation where they're looking for to get accommodations, you're obviously not going to be here this term. What can they do?
That's right. I will be out for most of the fall term. I should be here for just the beginning of it, and then I'll be back in winter. But we're making sure that students and any faculty that have questions are left in good hands. Shawn Humphrey is our Assessment and Compliance Officer, and he has also been 504 and ADA certified like I have. So he's very familiar with the accommodations process. He already knows a lot of our students because he sees them come in and out of the office. So students can still go to ATAC 305 and get any help that they need with any accommodations questions that they might have while I'm on maternity leave.
Well, congratulations not only on your new position, which I know it's been, beginning of the year. Congratulations on your first child.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. And I just appreciate you taking time out of your day to come down and chat about such an important area of student success. So thank you so much for coming down today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, for Megan Peterson, Title IX Officer and ADA Coordinator here at Central Penn College, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.